If you have built applications for a while or built websites, you have most likely had this term flying around. What exactly is it? What exactly is the benefit? Why exactly should you use it? Let's understand that in this video. You are building an application. You are going to get a server on which you're going to host that application. And you have different hosting providers from which you can get a server. You can either choose to get your server directly, maybe from platforms like DigitalOcean, or you can use platforms like Netlify or Vercel, which will provide you with a server. You can have your domain name and all the stuff. And here on your server, you host all the assets for your application. And also on this server, you're going to have different pages. So each of these pages have all these assets. And now let's say your server is hosted somewhere in the US. This is just one server. Now you have a user in the US on their device. They try to access your websites on their browser. They would have to make a request to your server, and your server can request with the resources for that page. You can have another user somewhere here. Let's assume this user is also in the US or lives closer to your server in a way. But then let's say you have a user somewhere in Europe, in Africa, like somewhere far away. As you can obviously see, this user is most likely going to get a quicker response from the server compared to this user. For this user, you have a low latency because the distance between the user's location and the server is not so much. And you can have multiple users also from faraway locations. Now, if you're building an application for just the US or North America or just for the people in your neighborhood, in that case, you wouldn't have much of a problem. But when you have users coming from different parts of the world, now you need to start thinking, how can you bring this server closer to everybody? Because you wouldn't want to lose users or lose customers just because they're having a slow experience. Now, one thing you can do is you already have one server, right? Now, you can buy multiple servers in different locations. With this, you have your servers spread across the world for your users. For this user, instead of them reaching out to this server to get different resources, they can instead reach out to this server and get a response from this server. With this, you have solved the problem of proximity of your servers to your customers. And this is actually the idea of a CDN. But if you're managing something like this yourself, well, this is going to require much more work from you, because then you have to start thinking about things like load balancing, security. Also, if this user is making a request, how do you direct them to this server instead of this server? Also, when you push new assets or resources to this server, how do you spread it to this server and this server and this server? These things become your responsibility. And if you're a very big organization, you probably have the resources to do that. But if you don't have the resources to do that, this is where you can consider CDNs. So CDN stands for Content Delivery Network. And this is a network of servers placed in different regions around the world, and they greatly help with proximity of servers to your users. So instead of you to manage all of these servers by yourself, all you have to manage is this server, which is usually called the origin server. This is where all your contents live. And these other servers will be provided by the CDNs. Let me give them a different color. So different hosting providers can provide you with this CDN feature. And with this CDN feature, you have this main server. And what the CDN would do is sync these other servers with your main server. So your main server contains all of these assets: HTML, CSS, JavaScript, PNG for your different pages. Now the CDN is going to sync this with this server. Let me just create some arrows here. And this CDN uses the concept of caching. So as you have your resources added here, these CDNs are going to sync your resources with these other servers. But the beautiful thing of CDNs is that things like load balancing would be handled by them. Things like navigating certain requests to the closest servers. So for this user, when they try to access mywebsite.com, instead of their request coming directly here, their request will go to the closest server to them. And the beautiful thing here is that if this server is broken or not working for any reason, the CDN would also be able to navigate this user's request to the closest server. Maybe this is the closest, or maybe this is the closest. For this user, they can get their resources directly from here. So this way, your origin server server would not be receiving every request, and in this sense it also means that your origin server would not have a lot of load to manage. But then one question you're probably thinking is, how do you ensure that your users get the updated version of your assets? Let's say, for example, you changed an image or you changed the home page. Well, this is where you begin to go technical, and depending on the CDN provider, there are different ways you can set like expiry dates for your assets. But based on the configuration, when you update certain pages or certain resources, then the cached version, the temporarily stored version of that resource will be removed or purged, and the new version will be again synced from your origin server to the CDN. So this is how CDNs help. You have that network of servers. You only have to manage your origin server, and the CDN provider would handle all the other servers, syncing it with your origin server. One thing CDNs are known for is static hosting. Static hosting means that whatever JavaScript, whatever CSS, whatever static HTML you want to send to your users, instead of sending it from the origin server all the time, you can send it from these servers that are close to them. We even have some modern CDNs which do not just allow you to, for example, just host your assets, but instead of just hosting, they allow you to even be able to execute your JavaScript on those servers. So you have traditional CDNs which do not allow you to execute code. You can only host your static JavaScript or other assets, and some CDNs can even allow you to run your JavaScript on those servers close to your users. Things can get technical for here, but the general idea is you have your origin server, and these CDN providers are responsible for providing other servers around the world, syncing those servers with your origin server. And because of the proximity to your users now have low latency when requesting for resources on your application, which of course gives them a good user experience. And like I said, you have a server on the network, you have another server on the network. If this is broken, this user will be routed to the closest server. The origin server doesn't have much workload, which in some cases will even help you avoid attacks that can be sent directly to your origin server, and the CDN is responsible for the other things that helps your customers to access your application easier and faster. I hope this helps you get the concept of CDNs. I'll be making more videos like this touching on different software engineering terms.